In this edition of Generations, the coronavirus continues to grip the world, and we catch up with Age of Majority to find out how marketers are using the pandemic to reach out to the senior community. And Judy Jencks from seniorcenterct.org talks about the technologies and the resources available to the older community as they social distance but also stay in touch with their families and friends. Hello, I'm Brian Scott Smith, and welcome to Generations, a podcast for people of your generation. It's now May, and the coronavirus is still having a major impact on countries around the world. Here in the USA, we have already had weeks of lockdown and social distancing, as well as personal isolation. And for some parts of society, namely the senior community, it's been harder still, as they're told to stay at home because they're more vulnerable than the rest of us. But despite all of this, the world and life does go on, and companies and their marketing departments are finding new ways to reach out to us. I caught up recently with Jeff Weiss and Peter Boyce of Age of Majority, a consulting company that we speak to each year about how the world of marketing to seniors is changing. So joining us on the Generations podcast is Jeff Weiss, President and Chief Evangelist Officer, and Peter Boyce, Head of Research and Content from the Age of Majority. Welcome back to you both. This is I think the third year now that we've had you back?
It absolutely is. And it's a pleasure every time, Brian.
Well, it's great having the both of you back on. So, Peter, I'm going to turn to you first. Another year, what's changed in the active age and marketing sector?
Yeah, it's a really big question, Brian. And one of the things that I think is really interesting, simply because of a lot of really cool developments in the area, is the whole area of technology for health monitoring. It's an area that's getting a lot of venture capital funding right now. I think over the last couple of years has been like $10 billion raised across 1,000 deals just in this area. And it's really relevant for the whole area of active agers because they have that dual role as caregivers for older generations, but also they're thinking about, aging in place at home and how they can live independently. So it's a really exciting area, and there's just lots of really cool elements of tech going on here. You're probably really familiar with the acquisition large companies like Best Buy made a couple years back of Great Call, which is a company that focuses on kind of smartphones, smartwatches, various other devices that help senior living companies, people live independently. Large players like Apple, Samsung, and Amazon are all jumping on board with this. And the last thought on this is if you just look at what's come out of the Consumer Electronics Show the last couple of years, it's been all sorts of developments from everything from shavers for caregivers to rolling robots that actually help detect falls. So it's just been a really exciting area, and I think it's something to really watch out for that really taps into what the active ager is experiencing right now.
Just adding on to that, Peter and Brian, I think, in terms of the spending in this area, a lot of it tends to be focused more on helping less active older individuals. We're seeing a lot of money pouring into that, more on the healthcare side and things like that. However, when you get into, Peter talked about the CES show in Vegas, one of the some products there were focused more on hearing aids, which to me is a huge category of opportunity, given only 20% of people who need hearing aids use them, and a lot of them tend to be over 55. So we're definitely seeing more focus on an older audience, but still huge opportunities to bring in this community and engage them.
Now, of course, we're all currently faced with the coronavirus situation. How has that impacted or changed the way advertisers are interfacing with the senior community?
The coronavirus has clearly caused marketers to shift their messaging and focus really away from a lot of times advertising or communicating their brand more to an increased focus on mission cause-related advertising. So how brands are helping people cope, people impacted, friends, families, things like that. Specific to an older audience, a lot of focus on how can brands help, marketers help people connect remotely. That's a big piece. And what we're starting to see is that there's a growing comfort level, especially with older audiences, in terms of using the internet and online experiences. So we're seeing a lot more of that, which is having an immediate impact on various categories, and that's going to continue even after we're through the worst of the pandemic. But also, I just saw an interesting study looking at media consumption and looking at some of the habits by generation. I'll just share a couple of those things with you. Firstly, media consumption, we're seeing with boomers, so 55 plus, big increase in just looking at broadcast, looking at online streaming, so whether it be Netflix, Prime, Amazon, ITV, things like that. And plus a lot more increase in looking at online videos, especially funny ones, as people look for some comfort. Active Agers also spending a lot more time listening to music and playing games on both their mobile devices and computer. And then online shopping, I know people are spending less money in a lot of categories, but they're still spending in other areas, particularly on food and things like that. People looking for deal hunting. And then the last area we've seen is really people still want to learn and develop, whether it's professionally or just individually. So things like webinars, podcasts, articles, things like that are really growing in opportunity. So marketers are starting to understand all this stuff and are starting to kind of do things more focused on older active consumers.
The only thing I would add to that is there's, some of the good news we're actually seeing very early on when the pandemic hit. Obviously, a lot of advertisers were just reducing their spend, but we're seeing that actually older consumers are less likely to cut their spending as a result of the pandemic. So little glimmer of good news there, I guess, at least in terms of engaging the older audience.
Now, of course, we're all having to adhere to social distancing. Technology is being used to get those messages out there more to everybody. So, I mean, it sounds as if it's being received generally by the senior community quite well.
Absolutely. I think a lot of the things, the pandemic's just going to increase or escalate some of the trends we're already seeing, and some of amidst all kind of the negative stories about, social isolation, specifically among older adults who may be trapped, are some of the really good news stories we're seeing. Interestingly, the New York Times recently ran a story about a gentleman who had helped organize something called the Grandparents Academy, which basically recruited older adults with various levels of expertise in, whatever happens to be, if they were teachers or historians, whatever it was. And through the use of kind of an online calendar, they're connecting generations and helping, sharing their learning and insights with younger groups all through this technology. So, and as Jeff mentioned, just the tapping into some of the online expertise or classes that are available, they are actually really embracing it. We would expect this to continue for sure.
Brian, just adding on a personal story here. My 89-year-old mother, she's going to be 90 in June, who has never been that tech savvy. She's on her computer getting emails. She's playing games on there. She is in a senior residence, and we are just getting her up to speed on using FaceTime and Skype to communicate with us. So we've been communicating with her more than ever, and I think she's quite happy about that. But now getting her up to speed in some of the new technology, I never thought would have happened, but sure enough, with my soon-to-be 90-year-old mother, she is embracing it. And again, this is just going to open up doors in the future. It's not like she's going to stop using that once the pandemic calms down and hopefully goes away. So we're going to see this technology and this communication continue moving forward for a lot of older people.
Staying on that subject, though, not everybody is tech savvy or wants to use technology. So how is that impacting them and their ability to live their lives at the moment and, say, maybe make purchases?
Yeah, for sure. The issues that are affecting all age groups are, I think, even have a deeper impact on older groups through the social isolation. And if they weren't, for those who actually hadn't been online yet, but on the kind of the good news front, we're seeing a lot of companies step up when it comes to that. I mean, certainly a lot of people are familiar with what retailers are doing in terms of offering quote unquote senior only shopping hours for those who may be a bit more vulnerable. Even smart companies who are generally use a digital platform to offer their services. The smart ones are adapting. So for instance, we just saw a story just happened from Uber Technologies, which announced that it's actually allowing its Uber Eats customers now to make requests or engage them through telephone. So those who are less tech savvy now have an opportunity to actually use these services and hopefully stay loyal to them after the pandemic's over. So that actually came out of some research that Uber did just to find out that some older adults have struggled to use technology, and now they've kind of set them up for success again going forward. So absolutely, it's had an impact, and but those who are smart are adapting, and we expect them to thrive after this is over.
The other point I want to ask both of you as well is the senior community, of course, was deemed the most vulnerable from coronavirus. Have marketers understood that, and have they adjusted the way that they're selling services to them?
I'll jump in on that one, Brian. We're definitely seeing on the retail front, a lot of retailers now who are making special concessions for older and more vulnerable consumers, particularly when it comes to offering special shopping hours. So for example, I'm shopping the grocery store north of Boston here once a week, and from 6 to 7 in the morning, you have to be 60 and older to go into the store. So definitely catering to that group. So I was in line at 7 o'clock sharp to get in after that first rush of seniors came in. So we're definitely seeing that, which is catering to that group. As Peter mentioned before, we're seeing a lot more focus on kind of missions and causes. You see brands, a lot of luxury brands who are moving their production to producing sanitizers, to producing masks. And then we're also seeing the industries that cater specifically to older consumers are making adjustments, particularly to help older consumers stay connected with their friends and family. So whether that's by giving out iPads at more residents, to arranging video sessions for them. We're also seeing, I know that a lot of people like to exercise and now they can't go to classes. So we're seeing a lot more use of video by gyms who can't open up their door anymore. And what we're seeing more and more of is, rather than having a 25 or 30-year-old instructor leading the session, we're starting to see now older, very active people who are as instructors. So my wife, I know, is doing a session led by a friend of ours who's 75 years old, involved with Zumba, and she's doing a variety of classes. And for people who are older, it's much more aspirational to see someone their age or someone older who's quite active versus someone who's younger. So we're seeing that as well. And then on the more humorous side, we see, a brand like Coors Light that's taking advantage of this. They jumped on the opportunity to help a woman, a 93-year-old woman near Pittsburgh. She was caught staring out of her window with a sign asking for more beer while clutching a Coors Light. She got her wish with a 150 can delivery and promised for more. So that's just a great opportunity of a brand, in this case, a beer brand, Coors Light, who saw that online, and it's just really being proactive and reactive to situations that they can do some good no matter what someone's age is.
Jeff, that's a great story with regards to obviously the beer. I don't think there's anybody out there who wouldn't ever say, no to some more beer, is there? So once the coronavirus is over, do you think we'll see a return maybe to normal marketing methods, or do you think marketers will continue to use, more of this technology to speak to the active ager based on the responses like these positive stories, that they've got, during the pandemic?
Yeah, I don't see any reason why active agers won't continue to order products online post-pandemic. So I think there's going to be plenty of opportunities for brands and businesses to take advantage of the different needs and desires of the group. I think we'll start to see probably more focus on digital marketing to this group because, one of the myths is that, older people are technologically adverse and challenged. And I think just by what's happening, older people are being forced to use technology, and I don't see that going away. So I think this ever-increasing use and comfort of active agers with technology, smartphones, apps, online services, I think is going to change how this group engages with society, from shopping behavior to how they work out, how they worship, how they socialize with others. So I don't think that's going to change. And I think marketers will, the smart, savvy ones will kind of recognize that earlier and really hop on that. And then one of the other things that I'm sure we'll start to see is that due to this isolation, there's some good stuff, some bad stuff as well, as you're in close partners 24 hours a day. I know we've already started to see in China where coming out of the pandemic, at least initially, the filings for divorces has increased significantly. So I think that, for couples who've had a good relationship, I think the isolation has been fine, and in some cases tighten that up. But where relationships haven't been good to begin with, coming out of this, I think we're going to see birth rates increase, I think, with younger people. But for older active agers, I think we're going to see a rise in divorce rates. So if you think about that in terms of some of the products and services that will be impact, everything from financial planning to dating apps, sexual health products, I think there's going to be an increase in opportunity for marketers like that. So just kind of a different take on one of the outcomes of what we're seeing here.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add to that, Jeff, is there's still a lot of work to do for marketers in kind of pleasing the active aging consumer. I mean, even prior to the whole pandemic hitting, we know that older consumers had lower approval ratings of normal brand campaigns, and we always knew that there was a level of dissatisfaction there. When they've looked at some of the reaction to the COVID-19 specific campaigns, approval ratings have gone up for sure. To Jeff's earlier point about more mission and cause focused messaging, but there's still work to be done, so that there is an opportunity to sort of play off what's some of the learning from some of the cause and messaging and what we know about older consumers and how to engage them better throughout this process that can be carried over following this time.
Jeff and Peter, it is always a pleasure talking to you both and listening to these incredible insights and an amazing organization that you have there at Age of Majority. It will be interesting to speak to you again in a year's time from now to see how much of this actually follows through once we're hopefully seeing the end of the coronavirus. In the meantime, thank you to you both, as always, for coming on to Generations and speaking to us. And both of you stay safe and, of course, stay home.
Thank you, and be well yourself.
Thank you too, Brian. Take care.
And for more information about Age of Majority, visit their website at ageofmajority.com. So joining us as ever is Judy Jencks of seniorcenterct.org. Judy, it's social distancing again because we're still in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic. How are you?
I am fine. It is very different not seeing you face to face.
Indeed. Okay, well, let's get on with your ode for this episode.
Okay, today is marketing trends, and they have been heading in new directions for a while. But the COVID-19 is really pushing that envelope into horizons we cannot even imagine. We currently are living, working, and shopping in ways we never dreamed of. And these new ways, too, will change quickly as we adjust to a whole new normal as we come out of this lockdown. We will mourn the loss of many things as we start consuming services and goods in different ways. We will be discovering that companies and businesses have survived and what businesses have emerged. Stopping for a coffee can be a good example. How many of us stopped daily for a great cup of joe, couldn't live without it until our lives changed. The habit got broken because we were no longer leaving the house every day. The question becomes, how many cups of coffee will that business sell as we come out of this pandemic? Will the local shops even reopen? Businesses must adjust quickly if they plan to survive and be profitable over the next 5 years. Marketing trends have been heading in new directions for a while, but the COVID-19 is really pushing that envelope into horizons we cannot even imagine. Trends show we will continue to hold virtual meetings, which will become a more efficient use of time. We will socialize in very different ways. We have found we do not like social distancing so much. Clubs will pop up and memberships will increase. Facebook groups will evolve and start gathering in person. Established groups like VFWs, the Elks, the Moose will attract new members. Senior centers, the Y, Park and Rec, and similar organizations will experience a surge in activity as people discover their new routines. The public will spend months, perhaps years, looking for and discovering their new day-to-day habits. And when creating this new life, they will select the parts they like and disregard what they will not do again. And businesses need to be where the consumer can find them, such as seniorcenterct.org. This collective site is trusted and contains trusted information. It's cutting-edge resource that is a place where users find what they're looking for, mark their calendars with activities, and through clickable ads find services and products they're looking for. Plus, they can relay all of this information to their family and friends. So businesses need to be that trusted advisor, service, site, or provider. They need to strengthen their existing business relationships, identify real opportunities and shift accordingly, pinpoint key priorities, determine their brand and do extensive brand building so their company is easy to recognize, and be ready for the recovery. And all businesses need to be very aware of the senior population. As a group, they will be, for the most part, the least affected by all of this. For the most part, their income will continue to be very stable, and they still will be purchasing and consuming at the rate they were. Resources like seniorcenterct.org will grow in popularity as the senior population, their friends and families are looking to establish and get back to their new ordinary lives.
Never a truer word spoken there, Judy. It will be interesting to see how many of these new things that we've adopted will actually carry on as and when life does return to some sort of normality.
Yes, it will be very interesting to watch over the next couple of years to see how things change and then how much they stay the same.
And the other thing that's interesting as well, I was talking to some of my family and some of the older members of my family who didn't have technology but have grandchildren and obviously haven't been able to see them because of the whole social distancing thing. They've either purchased themselves or had purchased for them things like Alexa Show or some like devices where they can then, either have video chats or whatever, with the rest of the family. So that's an interesting like evolution there. They didn't want to use the technology before because clearly, they like to have the face-to-face meeting like we all do, but forced into a situation so that at least they can still see members of the family whilst everybody is isolating.
And as they're doing that, they're finding out how simple it is to use the devices. When the unknown, whatever the unknown is, we sometimes fear it. And when you're forced into a situation where you have to use it, it's like, well, dang, why didn't I do this a long time ago?
Absolutely. Well, it's been lovely talking to you, even though I can't see you. And we hope that will change next time. We said it last time, but let's cross our fingers and hope that we see the back of this very soon. But in the meantime, stay safe and we will catch you next time, Judy.
And stay healthy, Brian. And hopefully we do see each other next month.
That's all from this edition of Generations. Don't forget to visit seniorcenterct.org to find out what's going on in your neck of the woods. And if you want to send us a topic to talk about or want to be our guest on the podcast, drop us a line by visiting the seniorcenterct.org website. Go to the bottom of the homepage and click the How to Advertise with Us link to get in touch. From myself, Brian Scott Smith, thanks for listening. Stay safe and we'll catch you next time.